It has occurred to me how ludicrous it must be for me to choose this particular topic as my first ever commentary slash thought sharing video. I originally wanted to choose something a lot more simpler substance-wise, such as who would win in a street fight between Jon Jones and Tyson Fury, and then I would have sat back and take pleasure in watching the comment section rip each other apart for no apparent reason other than taking the opportunity to allow their alpha apex predator sides take charge and challenge each other to death matches that they will, let's face it, never show up for anyway. However, I've instead decided to discuss a topic that has recently been a lot closer to my heart, and one which I recently found myself so eager to dive into that I decided to put my YouTube comment section deathmatch on hold for a bit. You see, recently I watched an interview that I ended up being quite mesmerised by. I thought it was quite intriguing, and I wanted to share a summary of this clip and my experience that I had in regards to what happened once I decided to take some snippets of it and share it with friends and upload it onto different social media platforms. The video in question is one where Mayim Bialik interviews Jennette McCurdy. Sorry for butchering those names. For those of you that don't know, Mayim played Amy in the hit TV series The Big Bang Theory. Yes, that's right, the show where there's a lightweight version of me, Sheldon Cooper, who is a super intelligent, handsome and financially successful boyfriend to Amy, and who also has no clue about sex. So like I said, a lightweight version of me. Now, I think it's safe to say by now that the cat is most definitely out the bag. Mayim, who plays Amy, who is a super intelligent, interesting, smart lady, just happens to be exactly that in real life. You see, she has a PhD in neuroscience from UCLA, which makes her the only cast member of The Big Bang Theory to actually have earned a PhD in real life. When I do colour correction on clients' videos, or when I'm working on editing photos for them, I usually listen to some type of podcast, mostly on YouTube, and recently hers came up on my feed. It is quite interesting as she seems to focus her interviews around mental health and how we can improve our mental health state. Now, I might not agree with everything or every guest that appears on the podcast, but that doesn't mean I can't learn something new. And I also find myself finding a lot of the topics that are being discussed quite interesting. She also seems to have a major focus on finding and declustering information so that essentially the listener, if they're going through a hard time, can be helped. A lot of our guests are specialists in different kind of fields that could help you with meditation, developing brain power, improving your social skills, easing anxiety, and so on. So once again, it's well worth checking out. One of our more recent segments included a former actress slash singer slash podcaster and film director, Jennette McCurdy. To be honest, I'm not too familiar with her previous work. However, I do know that she used to star in a Nickelodeon show with actress and singer Ariana Grande. You might be asking yourself, but muscle-bound handsome Kareem, even as a kid you must have been so macho that you would never watch something with two silly girls in their teens that are going about their business, chasing after love and independence. And you're absolutely right, I didn't. But when I used to pick up my equally machismo-mastic friends, I would sometimes sit in the living room with their little sisters and have a glass of soy milk in pink cups while we would watch an episode or two of Sam and Cat. This was all whilst they were oiling up their biceps and psyching themselves up to be able to talk to girls by shouting in the mirror aggressively about how awesome they were. My friends, not their little sisters. So it turns out that McCurdy's interview is quite fascinating. In it, she talks about her book that came out in 2022, which has a quite horrific title, I'm Glad My Mum Was Shot Dead and Eaten by Snakes in Nebraska. Oh wait, no, that's the title of my book. Let me read out the following from Wikipedia so that there's no mistake. 2022, she released a memoir, I'm Glad My Mom Died, which quickly topped bestseller lists and received critical acclaim for her description of the pressures she faced in her career as a child star and the abusive behaviour of her now deceased mother. So that kind of gives you an idea of what she talks about during her interview. I was quite intrigued by this, and I have very rarely seen anyone who is in that kind of industry talk so openly about their hate for that industry, but also at the same time their need for attention from that industry. I ended up checking out a couple of more of McCurdy's videos online, and I found that she has a collection of short clips where she reads paragraphs from her book and delves a little bit into her past by sharing stories of pain, grief, hate, and jealousy. She talks about Ariana Grande in one of these clips, and basically she shares how much jealousy she had for Ariana despite never actually having her do anything to her directly. As a matter of fact, it seems that Ariana was quite friendly towards McCurdy, at least on a personal level, but at the same time, she was also gaining momentum with her music career, which caused her to miss work, meaning she wasn't there when she was supposed to film certain scenes for the television show they were both working on. In one instance, the show's producers decided to replace Ariana for 2 episodes with a box. That's right, a big empty box. Which, let's be honest, I mean, if you've ever seen Ariana Grande act, I'm sure you'll agree that's actually quite an improvement. However, McCurdy's main issue is that Ariana was able to skip work, and McCurdy herself was not allowed to do the same when she had the opportunity to branch out and act in movies. This is unfair treatment, and it obviously struck a nerve with McCurdy. And this is quite understandable. I myself, believe it or not, work as a mediator, and I often have people come up to me and say, hey, why did this person get more holidays than me? Why does this person earn more than me? And why is this person more handsome than me? Well, maybe that's because you're an ugly bastard. So I am well aware of how much friction a situation like this could cause, but it doesn't seem that this is McCurdy's main issue. As a matter of fact, she kinda looks past a lot of Ariana's antics, up to the point where she finds out that none less than Tom Hanks himself ends up playing some weird Ouija board game at his house with Ariana Grande the night before. This is where she openly admits her jealousy, and she also talks about how she despises the fact that Ariana comes from what seems to be a perfect home. She can have things that she desires. Her mother can buy her designer bags and clothes, even though McCurdy herself states that she doesn't even want any of these things, but she does want to be able to have those things if she wanted to. However, during her younger years, this was not possible due to the lack of money in her household. You see, her mother wasn't feeling very well as she had cancer, and during her 11th year on Earth, she herself ended up becoming the main provider for her family using the income she garnered due to acting. This in turn causes her mother to be motivated to push her harder and harder into an acting career, something that McCurdy didn't really feel comfortable with growing up. And this is quite understandable. I mean, when I was an 11-year-old girl, I also had insecurities when I was a famous actor, or rather when I was a 12-year-old boy in school. I had my own insecurities I was trying to figure out, so I can only imagine how it must have been for her. What mesmerizes me is McCurdy's ability to articulate her experiences. The way she summarizes her thoughts and the way she paints a picture is actually quite frightening. She does it with so much detail and emotional accuracy that when listening to her, you might find it easy to imagine every little thing that's going on and end up placing yourself in a conscious virtual reality that is linked to a past full of anger, anxiety, and trigger moments. When she spoke about her experiences, I actually felt that she was reliving them. As she shared, you could hear the tone of her voice change when talking about something very specific or a detail that seemed to bother her quite greatly. And that is quite frightening because on a personal level, from one human to another, I do hope she is not living out these scenarios over and over in her mind and replaying them on an endless loop. I feel memories that are associated with past traumas can often trigger the feeling of what the victim has experienced when it was happening, But the difference is that although the experiences are in the past, the negative feelings they generate are in the present, and that does not make for a healthy future. Now, I might be reading into this too much, or maybe my own empathy has generated a feeling of unease whilst watching her talk about these topics. It could be that she's just really good at talking about her past and placing herself in the moment and acting out her emotions due to her training as an actress, but is able to disconnect with them once the topic has been discussed. Or maybe, and also, her writing the memoir was a form of therapy that was much needed in her life. Either way, I wish her all the best, and I hope you do too, because regardless of who you are, we can all go through a hard time, and that can cause us to walk around in the fog, not knowing how to deal with past traumas. And that can sometimes leave us with comfort in regurgitation, which might give us a sense of healing in the short term, but I tend to feel from my own personal experience that being able to forgive and let go and focus on being the best version of yourself and living life with maximum enjoyment is the true ultimate goal. But then again, as they always say in these kind of videos, I'm not a professional, so maybe don't take my advice. Before I finish this video, I want to address an additional topic that I was slightly shocked by, and this might sound naive, but I did not expect people to be so toxic on social media towards McCurdy. I know what you're all thinking, and before you type in the comment section, yes, I know I'm a brainless toad who should have known that social media comment sections are the cause of spiritual cancer. Social media comment sections have literally given everyone in the world a free pass to be an expert on everything and to troll people who are actually experts on certain topics. Now, I will not get into the discussion of who is a specialist and what qualifies for a specialist, and do we trust the specialists? Because the topic might have research being done that in a very short period of time will prove all other proven theories wrong. So I always try to be adaptive and keep an open mind. It is not really the contradictions that bother me though. Throughout human history, we have had many of these, and it's normal to have had limited research in the past on a topic, and then we invent tools or methods that help us do more detailed research, and we found out, oh, we were wrong all along. What was shocking to me was how random people on the internet were chastising her behaviour and saying she is selfish and that the jealousy in her heart is going to lead her on a self-destructive path and that she shouldn't be so petty. Here's where I feel that I should come to her defence. Not that she needs it, she seems a very independent, strong woman on her own, but I just don't think she is as envious as she once was, and I think she's now only addressing the topic of once being envious and calling up the emotional momentary state as she tells her story so that she can inspire others. I also feel that this is a form of therapy that may be well overdue for her. I feel that if someone does articulate themselves in this type of fashion, we should not be quick to jump and attack them and call them petty or just assume they're searching for attention. In fact, let me contradict myself. Maybe she and others like her are searching for attention because despite being surrounded by a mother who was very interested in her career and very invested in her financial status, as well as having showrunners, producers and directors that were seemingly also very interested in her, she never actually had someone who was interested in her for who she was. And even if that is inaccurate and she did actually have someone who was completely invested and interested in her as a person, she might have at the time been so far gone that she didn't even realise it, which in itself is quite heartbreaking after the fact. For what it's worth, I'm here to tell you that everything rotates. Opportunities once again arise, relationships can be once again formed, new experiences can be made, and they can be even more amazing than what you've ever experienced prior. So try to keep an open mind and don't take someone's failure or even the situation's failure to treat you well too heavy to your heart. It's all part of the experience of life, and while it can sometimes feel good to complain about things and keep the vibration of heartache and anger, as this sometimes can be proof that we're still alive, in the long run it's a lot more satisfying to dust off past problems from your shoulder and aim for being the most funnest, most enjoyable and happiest version of yourself that there is. As a mediator and social worker, I have met with children who lost their parents, saw loved ones pass, themselves were kidnapped, and have had many other traumatic experiences happen that I would never wish upon my biggest enemy. However, one thing that I have learned is that sometimes the more traumatic the experience, the more one can really appreciate the simple things in life. For example, I remember one guy who was in a war zone and had witnessed something very horrific that I do not wish to repeat here. He ended up becoming very attracted to botany. He fell in love with flowers, and for him, that kind of thing was very therapeutic. And it later became a passion. As he continued to pursue it, it became a profession. He was the perfect example of someone who would stop to smell the roses. He really took it in. I know one shoe doesn't fit all, but I guess what I'm trying to say here is, regardless of what you've went through, trying to find something that brings you joy and use that as your counterbalance, you might end up creating a beacon of hope that you can work towards. You might not have a great day every day, but there is something great in every day that you can use to bring you joy. That joy is your beacon of light, your beacon of hope, your beacon of freedom. That is something you can use to work towards to bring you more abundance in regards to happiness. I am of course curious to hear what people think in the comment section. I am usually for freedom of speech. However, please don't be toxic towards people that may be going through a hard time. And if you are going through a hard time, please don't feel that people are consistently being toxic towards you. For this comment section at least, I would like to open up a discussion on trauma and post-traumatic stress disorder, where we talk about everything without judging each other. I have other videos where I make fun of all types of things with dark humor intended to troll. However, here I just think it would be nice to be able to share stories with each other and get things off our chest, and maybe share words of inspiration to those that might need it. I know that wishing for this is probably too much, and I don't think this video will reach a wider audience or anything like that, but for the small audience that may happen to stumble upon this video, why not share an experience that you've had if you feel comfortable doing so, and maybe someone out there will read it and share a comment of inspiration if they feel inspired to do so. From there on, of course, I hope we can all let go and continue living our best lives full of joy and happiness, because ultimately that's what soldiers are apparently trying to fight for, that's what religion is apparently supposed to guide us towards, and that's what teachers are supposed to prep us for in school. However, we always seem to go in the direction of toxicity. Hope I pronounced that correctly. Maybe we can take it upon ourselves to focus more on inspiring each other rather than being angry at each other or triggered by each other. Instead of being triggered by McCurdy, let's be inspired by her and her bravery to share her story and open herself up to potential ridicule from the world. In the description, I will leave some mental health links if anyone is going through a hard time. Maybe they can check it out. I will also leave some links to some inspirational videos that helped me in the past when I was going through my own little things. That's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. If you like, drop a like or a dislike, and go and have a cup of tea whilst you write down 2 or 3 cool things that you want to do within the next 2-3 days. And go out there and start to enjoy life.
You got a shit.
정말 감사합니다.